Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Witches the Moon. I'm your Friday hostess, Natalie, and we have entered into the Yuletide season. Yay! As you can tell by my lovely accoutrements and my little ears. No asking about the tail, by the way. Somebody did ask me. Okay, this week's topic is influential people on our paths, or melding paths. Sorry, not influential people. That's nice. Melding paths, bringing together different items from different religious beliefs or backgrounds, and how we meld these things into our current path. So I'm actually going to kind of do a little combination video here. I'll do a separate video for each one of these, but I'm going to talk about some people that have influenced me and some books that I've read that have influenced my path that come from different backgrounds. And so this is it's not necessarily a book recommendation. It's just these are things I have read that have influenced my path. The very first thing that I read that really influenced my path was this book by Ross Nichols, The Book of Druidry. And it really kind of started out when I was younger. I was very, very interested in the Druidic path in terms of I was always very proud of my Irish and Scottish roots, and I wanted to know more about what my ancestors did and believed and how they lived. And so I started delving into the history of Ireland. That's where I learned about the Druids, and I started reading about Druids and Druidry. And I didn't really consider that a path at the time because, again, many of you will know that I was raised in a very staunch Christian household, and you believed what my mother believed or you didn't live in her house. And if you didn't believe it, you were an evil person and you were going to hell. So it's one of those things where my path originally kind of was leading towards a witchcraft. Those of you that are familiar with my story know that I talk about I was gifted my first tarot deck. First tarot deck at age 11, and was working with them and was doing, I think, a decent job of learning the cards for not having any kind of a book or anything. She just gave them to me and said, here, learn to use these, you have a gift. And that was it. That was all the guidance I got. So a lot of it was going to the library because we didn't have the internet back then, folks. Yes, I'm that old. I know I don't look it, but I am that old. So I had to go to the library and do a lot of research and kind of learn about them and ask people questions and things. And then my mom found them, and that was the end of that. Into the fireplace they went. I didn't own another deck until about 2 years ago when I was gifted a deck by Amy Webster. So Druidry was really kind of my foothold back into this path, so to speak, because I spent 20 years married as a Catholic and loved Catholicism in terms of I liked the deep spiritual sense I got from it. I liked the fact that I saw people from different walks of life and different colors and races worshiping in one place, and that seemed more in line with what I was taught Christianity was supposed to be. However, I also realized very quickly that it was highly stylistic and ritualistic, which is what I liked, and it absorbed a lot of the pagan views, which was what my mother didn't like about it, but which appealed to me highly, and so that just kind of further led me on to this path. And along my time, I mean, I was never forbidden from studying about other religions, so to speak. And so I did, of course, when I took World Civ in college, I had to study about Buddhism and Hinduism and Shintoism and all of that kind of, Eastern influence, that sort of thing. And I was very interested in those. And I've always rather liked Buddhism, and I've incorporated some of the Buddhist and Hinduistic ideas into my own practice in terms of I do believe very much in the practice of meditation and mindfulness. Now, those are not typically witchy per se. I think witches take that on. It's not specifically witchy, although a lot of us utilize that as a tool within our practice to enhance our craft and to make it better. But it's really a practice that comes from those other areas of the world that I have incorporated. And what I have found is it is an excellent way of grounding yourself. I find that it's very useful in releasing a lot of negative energy and intention back out into the ground rather than sending it out into the universe and just kind of being a grumbly growly person. It has really helped me and influenced me a great deal in terms of being able to let go of some of the persecution that I suffer, especially because my husband, being raised Catholic, he's not a practicing Catholic by his own means, but he will run right back to it to prove to me that I am wrong about my path, and how dare I change change from, Christianity to witchcraft, and I'm an evil person. And, but he's very bipolar because he also buys me all my books and all my tools and all of that stuff. And he, reads about it, reads the reviews, looks into the research. And so it's very strange. He's very bipolar in his support, and it makes it difficult. So having that tool in my bag in terms of being able to use meditation as a tool to release some of that negative energy has been phenomenally helpful to me. I am a much happier person than I was 3 or 4 years ago. I used to be a very angry, bitter, nasty, vengeful kind of person, believe it or not. And if you cross me, I might still be vengeful, but I can let go of things a lot easier than I used to be able to. I don't hold anger within me like I used to, thanks to the practice of meditation. So that is something that I have been influenced by in terms of just taking on some of the wisdom of the Buddhist teachings. I have certainly done that. I was gifted a set of Dharma cards from somebody, I believe it was Kristen Horn, actually, I think, sent those to me. And I wish I had them with me. I don't have them here in my office because I use them at home, which is where I typically do my meditation. I don't get to have as much private time here as I would like. So I will, I'll have to share those in a video. I might just do a video just on those cards because they give you like a statement, a teaching of Buddha, and then there's a picture on the back side of the card, and so you can focus on the picture or focus on the verse and kind of think about it. And I have absorbed a lot of that teaching into my own practice because a lot of it's really not out of line with everything else that I've always corely believed. So that was one. Another book that was very influential to me, besides the Book of Druidry, where I started to learn about the Druidic path and realized that it was something that had been brought into the common. And what's nice about this book is that this book also talks about Native American influences, which has always been a big influence on my path as well. My great grandmother was a full-blood Cherokee, and so I remember a few of the things that she told me. I was in high school when she passed away. Well, I was just graduating high school. I had just graduated when she passed away, and I never got to spend a whole lot of time around her. But at family reunions, she was a fabulous storyteller, and I used to like to kind of sit around, and we would always stay in her house when we went to Odessa. So I do remember some of the things that she shared with us, and this book talks a little bit about that and how they have similar lines to Druidry. It talks about a shamanistic path, which I have taken on some shamanistic practices also, especially in the transcendental meditations and the kind of contemplative sort of methods that are used in shamanism. And from this book, I eventually was led to this book, Druid Power, which it's a really good book. I'm in the process kind of trying to reread it. I just sort of read through it very quickly the first time I read it, and now I'm going back through it and doing my usual parsing and note writing and highlighting and so on that I do. And this was also very influential because, again, this brought this entire path home to me in terms of it is a modern and very viable practice available today. It is not considered, or the Druids don't consider themselves a religion, so to speak. It is a way of life and a path, which by my definition is a religion. Your religion is the principles by which you live your life. So I see it as a religious path for myself, but it's not strictly a religion. You don't have to be, you can be Roman Catholic and practice a Druidic path and be a member of the order and so on and so forth. The next kind of thing that influenced me a bit was Scott Cunningham. A lot of you are very familiar with him, and going into the use of herbs and natural healing. And I got into this kind of a little bit through the Druidic path. It caused me to start thinking, when I was thinking about the Druids and how they knew which herbs to use to heal and healing women, and that brought me into the Native American with the healers and the fact that they used to use willow bark. They would strip the bark from the willow tree to chew on to ease pain. The warriors would, and that sort of thing. And it really got me thinking a lot about a naturalistic path, and so I started getting into naturopathy, and then Magical Herbalism was a good book from Scott Cunningham. So that is an influence that I've had. Now, Scott Cunningham, Raymond Buckland, and Timothy Roderick, okay, they are all Wiccan, and Wicca has had a very strong influence on my path. Although I'm not Wiccan and I don't consider myself a Wiccan, I do feel that our ideas are very closely aligned. I think there's something to be gleaned from that very well. The thing that I kind of shy away from in terms of strictly Wiccan practice is that one of the things that led me to the path of the craft in the first place is that it's not dogmatic. We don't have a text or, a set of just strict principles that we live by, whereas I find that Wicca does. And, they don't have a book that they go by, but they have the reed. And the reed is, although I understand that for many it's simply a moral compass that kind of reminds you that, the universe tends to balance things. So what you send forth, some of that's going to come back to you. But I don't believe in the rule of three in a strict sense of it's going to come back to me threefold and that kind of thing. So I'm of the belief that if you cannot absorb something completely, don't consider yourself that, because if you're changing it, then that's not the principles by which you're living. So I don't really consider myself Wiccan, although I think a lot of my ideals come from that path, and I absorb it, and I believe it, and I use it, and I use a lot of meditations. Mr. Roderick in particular, he has a lot of really good meditations. Raymond Buckland was incredibly influential on me, and I have Trina to thank for that. For those of you that are not aware, Sunshine Morning Ray, who was one of the original hosts on this channel, is my cousin in real life. We are really cousins. We are truly related, folks. And she, I told her, I said, I'm very interested in learning about your religion and your path. Where should I go to learn more information about that? Where can I pick up information to learn more about what you do and what you believe? And Raymond's complete book of witchcraft, Buckland's complete book of witchcraft, also known as Big Blue, this was where she led me. So I downloaded the digital copy and then very quickly bought the actual copy because I wanted to be able to do what I do, which is tab it, parse it, highlight it, make notes in it, and perhaps one day pass this to someone else who may learn from it as well. So from there I went back to Druidry, and I did join the order. These are the Guershi of the order. These are just a few of them. It is a 3-year course of study. You start as a bard, then you move to ovate, and then druid, so it is leveled, but it still very heavily influences my path. I've had to let my membership in the order go, which upsets me deeply, but I am still parsing through the Guersh. You can see them here. They're very thin. They don't take a lot of time to read, but to absorb they take more time, I think. So that has been incredibly influential in my path. Another thing that has been very influential in my path is Reiki. Learning to be a Reiki master and to do the healing. Oh, I think I showed that in the last one. I keep these things handy for myself. I actually want to hang them up in my office, but my husband does not want me to because I do speech pathology, and I do have a few clients that I see here, one of which is a Jehovah's Witness. So my husband doesn't want me hanging anything of that nature in my office, although I have all of my other stuff out here, and I don't hide it. I don't feel I should have to hide it. I am who I am. I am a speech pathologist. I'm fully qualified with a master's degree. I am 3 classes shy of a doctorate in child development. I know what I'm doing. I'm a certified autism specialist. So my religion, what I practice, shouldn't really influence anybody in terms of them being present when I'm working with their child or with their family member to work on speech. I don't see why that should matter, but I don't think I should have to hide who I am, so I don't. But that is something that's been very influential to me because, again, it goes back to the basic principles of love. Love is something that guides my life. I used to allow anger to rule my life, and now I have allowed love to guide my life. And so I find that these paths that I'm drawing from all have that as a central theme, that love for one another, for our deity, for the universe, and our interconnectedness is something that is core value to me. My core values are we are all interconnected. That we may not all be one per se, but we are interconnected and thereby become one living thing, everything that is created, and that we need to respect and love one another. And love is service, love is kindness, love is sometimes tough. There's a lot of things that define love, but that for me has been a core principle on my path, is that I need to always walk in love of myself, first of all, because if you don't love and respect yourself, you can't pass that to anybody else. And so that has been a value that has influenced my path greatly and has allowed me to draw things from other religions or other viewpoints that I have melded into my particular brand of spiritualism, which is my own. And, for those that think that a cookie cutter religion is the way to go, I would argue highly that no, it's not. Because if no one can judge but the deity themselves, then how can one person's principles to life be the right way for you? Now, that being said, I do think that there are core values, core things that are ingrained into our psyche as human beings that we are drawn to, that draw us to specific religions, and I think love is the big one of that. I think love and a genuine caring for one another and a peacefulness is something that we all seek. We all say we seek it, even though people often start wars in the name of their gods. They're also shouting about how peace and love should be the way. And so I try to truly live that way and not be false to those ideals. So I have drawn from Wicca, I have drawn from shamanism, I've drawn from Druidism, I've drawn from Buddhist and Hindu beliefs to kind of form a core kind of central theme to my practice. And so those are some things that have influenced me. There have been a lot of influential people per se that maybe I don't necessarily follow their path. I've mentioned a couple. Raymond Buckland has been a huge influence on my life. And he was very heavily influenced by Gerald Gardner, as you know. I was also influenced by Ross Nichols. I've been influenced by Dave the Bard because music is, to me, the voice of the human soul. And so music is very, very important to me. I have been influenced by people who are in no way religiously related, so to speak. Musicians such as Paul Akhtar, he has had a huge influence on my life and where I guide myself in those things that guide me just from hearing him talk in interviews and things like that. I think that I've drawn some of other people's ideals and beliefs and views. I have learned a lot from you, our viewers, and a lot from the viewers of my personal channel and people that have interacted on religious groups. And all of those people have had an influence on my path and have shaped it or molded it in some way. And so I want to tell you that a lot of my path is heavily influenced by what I have learned from this channel and from channels like it and from other people who have commented and come into this channel through the viewership side as well as the host side. I can't even begin to tell you how much I've learned from Rhiannon and Eva Maria and Ori, Daya and Houston and Quentin and Sunshine Morning Rain, Tequila and Poe and Aaron, and all of those people have had some sort of an influence in my path and on my spiritual practices. So I tend to draw from a lot of different areas to kind of incorporate ideas into how I operate and what I do and what I believe. So those are just a few of the paths from which I have personally drawn. I would love to hear some feedback from you guys about what has influenced your paths, who has had an influence on your path. I do believe that next week, let me just double check that before I open my mouth and speak. For those of you that like surprises, I'm about to give you a spoiler, sorry. But I believe that this week we're doing melding paths, so different other paths that have had our back. Next week is influential people and then book recommendations. And then following that, I'll be doing the giveaway the week of Christmas, or right before Christmas, like right before Christmas Eve. So again, that's just a few of the things, the areas I have drawn from. I'll go into more detail next week about people themselves that have influenced my path. But for me, it's hard to separate the people and the books from the influence, if that makes any sense at all to any of you. If not, then just know that next week I'll be talking almost exclusively about people, and the following week I'll be talking about books, because I could talk about books all day. So I do appreciate your time. Thank you for watching. I look forward to your feedback, and remember, we're still open to taking some topic suggestions for next season because we have 3 weeks, including this week, left. So after that, we're going to be done for this season. We'll probably break until after the new year. And then we'll be back for season 17. Thank you so much for watching, and blessed be.